So here's the way we see it. Whether you want to admit it or not, owning rental property is a business. Your rental property is the building where your clients, aka tenants, gather and choose to live day in and day out. Show them respect so they want to remain a tenant year after year. Take the time needed to build trust right from the get-go by presenting your best product. This shows them that you respect their time for coming and checking the unit out, even if it's not a good fit for them. It also shows them you're likely a caring and responsible landlord. Welcome to your Landlord Resource Podcast. Many moons ago, when I started as a landlord, I was as green as it gets. I may have had my real estate license, but I lacked confidence and the hands-on experience needed when it came to dealing with tenants, leases, maintenance, and bookkeeping. After many failed attempts, fast forward to today, Kevin and I have doubled our doors and created an organized, professionally operated rental property business. Want to go from overwhelmed to confident? If you're an ambitious landlord or maybe one in the making, join us as we provide strategies and teach actionable steps to help you reach your goals and the lifestyle you desire, all while building a streamlined and profitable rental property business. This is your Landlord Resource Podcast.
Hey, landlords. Thank you so much for listening today. My name is Kevin, and I'm here with Stacy, and we're feeling really grateful today.
We really are. I'd like to just take a moment to thank all of you for listening. We are still in the stage of growth and hoping this podcast continues in its success. But for all of you who have subscribed or followed and downloaded or shared our podcast with other landlord friends, from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you. Please know we appreciate all of your support.
We barely earn anything off your landlord resource, but from time to time, we will earn a very small commission if you buy something we recommend. So thanks to everyone who has supported us in that small way too.
For those of you who might be hungry to learn in a more personalized way with a one-on-one feeling, we are in the beginning stages of creating a digital course just for landlords. So our goal has always been to provide newer landlords who own less than 10 units with all of the lessons we have learned. To learn how to figure out who your ideal tenant is. To strategically organize your rental property business so you can operate it in a streamlined way, so that you can lessen the overwhelm and have more time to do the things you love. Whether that's traveling, spending time with your family, or scaling your investments to add more units to your portfolio, we are here to guide you. There's not a lot of online courses out there for rental property owners to learn how to landlord. There are many books, and where we respect that, not everyone has the patience to sit down and read and work to transform that information to work for them. We hope to change that and help all of our followers and listeners be more confident when dealing with tenants by demonstrating how we do things with our rental properties.
Yep, exciting things coming in 2024 for your landlord resource. So today's show, it's all about how to handle unit showings. We have a lot of tips on preparation, safety, what to do during the walkthrough, and tips on closing the deal with prospects. So let's start with making sure the unit is prepared and ready to show. First impressions are crucial, so don't underestimate the power of curb appeal. It's important to make sure the property is inviting and presents nicely as being well-maintained to prospective tenants when they arrive. So before you jump into showings, plan out time to tend to landscaping by mowing the lawn, trim overgrown bushes, wash down the walkways, and make sure there is no trash laying around. If you offer outdoor furniture in a patio area, make sure it is cleaned off. For the interior, a unit can never be too clean. Nothing turns away a potential tenant faster than a dirty or unkept interior space. To create a lasting impression, get in there and clean it up. Make sure it's painted. If the unit has been flipped top to bottom recently, you don't have to paint the entire space. For us, we usually have 2 full walls in the bedrooms where the beds were up against them, or maybe a desk wall. And the same in the living room with a couch or an entertainment center. Otherwise, we are taking the roller around and touching up scuffs and spots on the walls and trim. Dust, vacuum, and sweep all the floors. Fix wobbly cabinet doors and install new toilet seats for every turnover. There is no way anyone is getting that old one from the previous tenant super clean. That $20 write-off is one that goes a very long way. You must clean the bathrooms and kitchens entirely. If you want to hand that off to someone else, hire a house cleaner to finish it out. But dusty, dirty homes that smell are a surefire way to turn a tenant towards the door, never to return.
So here's the way we see it. Whether you want to admit it or not, owning rental property is a business. Your rental property is the building where your clients, aka tenants, gather and choose to live day in and day out. Show them respect so they want to remain a tenant year after year. Do you like to go to a dentist's office or a restaurant that is dirty and unkept? Even just dust on the baseboards or windowsills is enough to turn a customer off. Take the time needed to build trust right from the get-go by presenting your best product. This shows them that you respect their time for coming and checking the unit out, even if it's not a good fit for them. It also shows them you're likely a caring and responsible landlord. So when there's a maintenance issue, there's a better chance you will remedy the problem quickly to keep your customer happy. A clean unit shows a potential tenant you take pride in your business and that you will likely keep up with the preventative maintenance and provide updates to keep the property in great shape. Owning rental property is a product-based business, but it's very much a service-based business too. Once you place a tenant to live in your rental or your product, you have to continue on the service side. And guess what? This is not hard when you have the right systems in place.
Are you done with your TED Talk? Can we get back to the episode?
Yes. Just please clean your units before showing them. And if you need to do updates, get them done as soon as possible after the previous tenant moves out. New appliances, new flooring, updated lighting, or window coverings can go a really long way. And also, before anybody moves in, make sure you're checking the appliances, the lights, the cabinet doors to make sure they're working. This can be done when you're doing your move-in inspection. So we have a free move-in, move-out inspection checklist that's available to download, so we'll link it in the show notes.
Now, if we make any improvements, we prefer not to show the unit until it's completely ready to go. It might mean it's a couple weeks before you can show it. But doing showings with ladders and buckets or paint cans laying around are distracting and a turnoff. We just did 2 episodes on marketing your rental property and gave a lot of tips on taking professional-looking photographs and creating walkthrough videos, all with your smartphone. When the unit is all clean and ready to go is when you want to do the photos and videos. If you've made improvements, you likely can use the same images again next time you have a vacancy in that unit. The videos are great when there is only one tenant that can make the showing. Then they can share the video and tell the roommates what they liked about your unit. So let's move on to scheduling the viewings. You've marketed it using our tips from episodes 23 and 24, and now prospects are contacting you with interest. Before you just get out there and show the unit, pre-screen these interested parties. We do this because way too many times we go to the unit, open it up, get all excited about possibly getting it rented, only to find out they don't qualify. It's a total waste of time for everyone involved. So now, when someone asks to see the unit or for an application, we always respond with something along the lines of, "Hi Joe, thank you for your interest in our property located at 123 ABC Street in the best city. Before we can meet you for a viewing or send over an application, please take a moment to answer the following questions." And then we'll ask them the top 5 qualifiers that are most important to us. They usually have to do with their credit score, if they have at least 2 landlord references, if their income is enough to cover rent, do they smoke, do they have pets. Make sure the questions you ask are always the same for all interested parties, and be mindful of fair housing laws. Once they respond with the questions, then we will arrange a time to meet with them and send them an application to complete.
And here's a tip for you. Pick a couple days that work for you. Set different times on those days, like Wednesday after 5 or Saturday and Sunday between 11 and 2. When the first pre-qualified person schedules, try to schedule the rest of them around that same day and time as the first person so you don't have to go to the property multiple times to open it up. We like to schedule our viewings 20 to 30 minutes apart depending on the size of the unit. Not only is this more convenient for us, but when a prospect shows up as another is leaving, it creates a bit of urgency for both of them. If they really like the unit and know that others are interested, they will not want to lose out. One of them will turn in their application and all supporting documentation much quicker. And this happens quite often with us. Also, have the prospect text you and confirm that they're still coming 1 to 2 hours before the showing. Think of it this way. They have no skin in the deal. If a friend invites them out for a free dinner, you think they're going to choose looking at your place over a free meal? It shows responsibility, and again, it saves you time waiting around for a no-show. Another item to consider when scheduling and showing is if the person is from out of state. Often, we get prospects who are only in town for a few days on a house hunting trip. If your schedule does not fit with their time frame, consider making an exception. Consider if someone qualifies but can't make the showing. Would you accept their application and process it without meeting them? This is certainly an easy way to avoid a fair housing complaint. We process applications once we receive all the supporting documentation. If the vetting goes well, then you got yourself a tenant.
I think we should touch on whether you should show your unit by appointment only or do an open house. We've done it both ways, but we prefer by appointment. Here's why. You know someone is actually coming. When they show up, you can give them your full attention. It allows you one-on-one time to sell the space and yourself as a landlord. You will also avoid looky-loos and nosy neighbors that only waste your time. And it allows you to leave the primary space to show them outdoor areas or common spaces like laundry rooms, storage areas, patios, parking spaces, while not leaving other prospects alone in the unit. You can make sure you hand them a welcome packet and capture their contact information. Remember, when you use listing software like Zillow or many other rental property listing sites, everyone has a unique email that is computer-generated to secure privacy. You certainly can use those for initial communication, but once you get past the point of pre-screening and showings, it's nice to switch over to personal emails so you can track them better. Open houses can be chaotic, especially if you're doing them by yourself. Okay, one more thing we do before the showings is to create welcome packets. These are a couple pieces of paper. The top page includes a photo of the front of the home or building. All pertinent information about the unit itself, like amenities, rent, and security deposit amounts, as well as all the qualifiers we need from them to be accepted, along with what they need to submit with their application, like their required FICO score, income to rent ratio, copy of a government-issued ID, proof of income, application fee, and a completed and signed application. We also have our contact information on there so they can reach out if they have any questions. On the back of that page, we include all our most common questions and answers. For instance, most everyone wants to know what utilities they have to pay for and which do we cover, if any. Some people will ask about parking or if the area is noisy, so we address those as well. I think we have about 10 to 12 questions and answers on there. And guess what? They are likely going to ask you for this information during the walkthrough. This is to put your property at the top of their list when considering which to choose, because these people are looking at many properties. They will likely be sitting there trying to remember which property had which amenities and which they have to search for parking or which had extra storage options. If you address all of this on that one piece of paper, it takes the confusion and overwhelm away and helps them make their decision. We also attach a paper copy of an application, but if you have a website that your application has a direct link, consider putting a QR code for that link. You can QR codes for anything, like any link where you might have your walkthrough video or an architectural rendering of the unit that gives all the dimensions of the rooms. You can create free QR codes at qrcodegenerator.com. We'll link it in the show notes. If there is no link, then under the Q&A section, include your mobile number and offer to text them an app or the video. Do whatever you can to make the information as easy as possible for them to locate in case they can't remember.
So believe it or not, we still get a lot of apps filled out by hand and then scanned or sent via photo. We do prefer the nice and neat ones that are filled out online, but we'll take them however we can get them. When the prospect walks in, we always greet them with one of those packets. Here's one more reason why those welcome packets work well. We were on vacation and we had a vacancy. So we had to have one of our employees sub in for us to show the unit one day. We sent him as much information as we could, but those welcome packets saved the day when he had to meet someone. Now, I want to address safety. This is directed mostly at women, but it's important for men to hear too in case they have a female family member or a partner that they work alongside when it comes to doing showings. As realtors, we often get a lot of information about how to be safe at showings, so I'm going to share some of that with all of you today. First and foremost, if you can avoid it, do not do showings alone. Safety in numbers is a real thing. If you must be alone, make sure someone knows where you are and who you're meeting with. If you're really concerned, have the person send a copy of their ID. But to be honest, if they're a creeper, then that information could be stolen or false, so I'm not really sure what good that does. I hate to say it, but everyone should carry pepper spray. And I'll admit, I am not great at this because 99% of the time, Kevin is with me. However, here's a quick story of something that just happened a few weeks ago. If you did not know, both Kevin and I are realtors, as well as own our own investments in real estate. At the time of this podcast, I am representing a very dear friend and her family that are selling an 8-plex that was recently inherited. My broker is co-listing with me on this one because his experience in sales of multifamily properties is much better than mine, and I also knew I was going to be traveling quite a bit, so it was better for my client to have consistent representation. When we get a listing that is a rental property, we also take over the property management so we can have a better control over all the leases and all the showings. So my broker and I were touring the units and making notes on what we needed to do and report back to the owner representative. One of the tenants was ass out drunk and really belligerent. He was not happy that we were there, and where he left me alone, he was really riled up about my broker, also a male. He followed us out to the front of the complex and started yelling at us. He was getting in my broker's face and calling him horrible names. And while his wife kept trying to get in between to push the tenant back, and after a while it worked, that was not until my broker, who at this point had his truck door open and was trying to get in, and threatened to spray him with pepper spray if he got any closer. He also had yelled out to me and asked if I had my pepper spray in case I needed it. I said yes, but it was in the bottom of my purse. I didn't feel that there would be any problem or any need for it because I was with another man. And nope, that was the wrong assumption. He then advised me to get in my car and be ready to call 911 if he had to pepper spray the tenant. The broker did everything right. He was clear on asking him to step back and please stop shouting at him. The tenant didn't. He advised the tenant that he was in possession of pepper spray, and if he came closer, he was going to use it. That was when the wife started screaming and pushing her husband, and finally he backed up. This all happened very quickly. I was seriously impressed at how calm my broker was. When I spoke with him later, he said that was the second time in a week that he had to threaten someone with his pepper spray. So please do not think because you own this unit that you are safe. You never know who is going to walk through that door and what their motive is. If you do have to be alone, here are my tips. Never show units at night if you're alone. Leave the front door and the back door open. Meet the tenant in front of the unit door or the home. Do not allow yourself to get cornered in a room. Always enter the room after the prospect so they cannot shut the door and lock it. If you can, stand by the entrance of the room or the doorway. Always have an exit or an escape plan just in case something feels off about this person. Wear comfortable shoes in case you have to run. Always have your car keys and your pepper spray in your pocket. Park parallel to the curb for an easy escape, not in the driveway where it's harder to get out. If you're concerned about who you're meeting, pretend to be on the phone when they arrive and fake a conversation that goes something like, "Okay, great, looking forward to it. I'll see you here in a couple minutes." This may make someone think twice about doing anything bad if they think someone is going to be showing up soon. And lastly, everyone should do themselves a favor and learn a few self-defense moves. There are classes you can take through your local park and rec, a karate or a jiu-jitsu dojo, or you can just Google self-defense course near me. During the pandemic, landlords were threatened a lot. So there were many articles about how to defend yourself in case you came in contact with a disgruntled tenant. I have an article about it somewhere. I will link it in the show notes for you to check out.
So we're not telling you this to scare you. It's just about being cautious. Bad things can happen even with the tenants you already are renting to. So you should always be prepared. One thing that Stacy did not mention was to exude confidence and have an air of authority. You don't want to come across as a know-it-all, but it is an accepted fact that people who hold their head high and shoulders back and give a sense of belonging and a don't mess with me attitude will make people think twice. Besides, it will impress the prospective tenant that you are confident regarding showing off your property. If you are shy and bashful and not looking people in the eyes when you speak with them, this could be interpreted as being meek and vulnerable. Okay, so I want to touch on one last thing landlords need to prepare and understand when getting ready to show a unit. And that is that first impressions are lasting impressions. It's important to showcase that you are a professional, helpful landlord. Be on time. Actually being there early to open up the space and have it ready to present is preferred. Dress nice. Clean jeans with no holes, khakis, or nice shorts for men. Do not show up in your paint clothes, thinking this shows them you work hard. They don't care. Ladies, nice clothing that you'd wear to lunch or out on a weekend. Try to avoid workout wear. There's no need to dress ultra professional unless maybe that's how you dress for work and maybe you're coming or going there. Avoid wearing hats. It sometimes makes it hard for others to make eye contact, and that's important when you're meeting and trying to impress someone new. It's important to remember that when you're doing these showings, the property is not the only thing being judged. These prospects are also making assumptions about the landlord. How well they can easily answer questions and communicate, how they conduct their business, and how well they'll maintain the property. Be prepared to answer questions tenants might have. One we get over and over is, how much do the utilities run each month? It's hard to answer because we don't know how much energy they'll use or if they'll rely heavily on the AC or heater during the hot and cold seasons. But do your best. Maybe ask another tenant with the same size unit if they have any idea of their costs. If there is only street parking, and if metered, know how long they can park and which days and times have no parking for street cleaning or garbage pickup. Also know if your city has permits for extended parking times and what the requirements are to get that permit, stuff like that. Know what key selling points you want to highlight for the tenant. New appliances, rooms with a lot of natural light, views, in-unit washer-dryer, or extra closet space. Think of things that other tenants have done with the space that impresses you. Like, we have a couple studio apartments, and we're often amazed at how tenants can make great use of that space.
Yeah, IKEA is great for studios and smaller spaces. It's also important to know about public transportation in the area in case the prospect doesn't have a car. And obviously, the monthly rent, security deposit amount, square footage, amenities, nearby schools, etc. Okay, so let's move on to the day of showing. As we have said, when you arrive, open the home or the unit up to make it easy to walk through. Open all the blinds or drapes to let in that natural light. And turn on all the lights, even if it's daytime. Make sure the temperature is comfortable. I think it's usually recommended around 70 degrees. Open the doors to all the rooms so people can enter easily and they don't have to touch the doorknobs. If the place has an odor from being closed up for a while, open the windows to air it out or light a candle. And as Kevin mentioned, know all the selling points to highlight about the unit, but also about the surrounding area. If there's a popular grocery store or a restaurant nearby, shopping malls, or local attractions, parks, and community space, those are things they need to know about. The more information you can give a potential tenant on the spot, the better equipped and more trustworthy you will seem. More information could sway them to make a quicker decision or go viewing other properties as well. Always remember the things you might consider trivial or insignificant points to say or do before and after property showings may leave a lasting impression on those who view your rental. When the prospect shows up, smile, greet them, and introduce yourself. If you do not want people to know you are the owner, just say you're the manager. And this works really well if the property is under an LLC because technically you are the managing partner.
You know you blew that the other day, right?
I know. And technically, I was talking to the guy installing the internet for the new tenant, but the tenant was right there. So yeah, I messed up and I broke my own rule. Ugh, oh well. All right. So when you greet them, hand them the welcome packet as we discussed before. When doing the tour, they need to be able to view all of the areas that they would have access to as the renter. So for apartments, that's going to include all the common spaces, pools, laundry rooms, gyms, rooftop patios, etc. For single-family homes, this might mean the basements and the outdoor space and garages if it's included in the rent. When it comes to showing the rental property, your goal is to have those prospective renters envision themselves living in your home. The more references you can make to items that make them feel comfortable and like they have arrived in a space they can call home, the better.
Exactly. While you want to impress your prospective tenant, it's also important for them to impress you. They'll be living in your space, and you'll be relying on them to pay rent on time and maintain the property. So, as you walk through the various spaces, use this time to collect information from them. Start off with pleasantries like, where are you living now, and what are some of the things you like to do for fun? If you may have already addressed it in the pre-screening questions but cannot remember, say, remind me, why are you moving again? You should also ask, when do you plan on moving? This will help you understand if there is a sense of urgency or if they are just getting comfortable with the area. If there is just one person walking the property, but there are several rooms to the unit, ask if there'll be anyone else living in the property with them. This will help you determine how many applications you have to process, as well as give you a good idea on the potential wear and tear you could expect.
And we also ask if they have pets too. Where we don't allow them, it's important to us to make it clear from the start.
Yes, pets are a good question to ask about. The last thing we want to say about what to do during the showing is to make sure you are mindful of fair housing laws. When you ask questions, make sure you ask the same questions during every tour. By asking different questions to different people, you open yourself up to a fair housing violation. Also, when showing all the spaces for the property, make sure you show everyone the same spaces. By showing someone who is fit the gym, but not showing someone who is clearly overweight, can be a violation of steering or discrimination. Do not skip any areas unless the prospect says you can skip it. Additionally, do not comment on what type of people live in the building. Stating what type of renters currently live in the building or may have lived in the rental home before could be construed as selecting a certain type of tenant or discriminating against others. Unless they ask, do not point out that there is a church down the road for them to worship at. Stuff like that. You never know when you might come across a fair housing tester that'll try to throw you off with questions about animals, disability, race, familial status, etc. To learn more about these testers, listen to episode 24, where we talk about them and what subjects they are using during phone calls and showings with landlords that are causing violations and fines. When the tour is completed, ask if they're interested in applying. Be mindful of comments that may lead them to believe they have already qualified, as you never know what the background check will uncover. Set a sense of urgency with regards to the application. Let them know you have other appointments and that you process applications on a first-come, first-served basis. Lastly, it's important to give them a timeline of how long it takes for you to make a decision. I believe we tell people we do a comprehensive background check, and it can take 2 to 4 days depending on how easily we can get a hold of their previous landlord's employer or personal references. That can deter someone from even applying if they know the last landlord might not give a favorable reference or if they fibbed about what their income actually is.
Yeah, so by giving yourself the time needed to completely process the application, you can avoid rushing to make a decision that might come back to bite you in the butt later on. So, sometimes during the final minutes of a showing, the prospective tenant might ask you if there's any leniency with your requirements or your criteria. And we get this all the time. Maybe they don't have any landlord references, which is common for college kids that lived in dorms or in a house where their name was not on the lease. Or maybe they have a pet and they want to know if you'll allow a lizard that stays in a big tank. Where it usually is not a good idea to waive any of your requirements, you can negotiate on a case-by-case basis. What is super important is that you make sure you have it written in your standard operating procedures on how you choose to handle it.
We did a podcast all about standard operating procedures, and to date, that's been our most listened to. So check out episode number 6. We'll link it in the show notes.
Yep. That one is a great one to listen to. We have a blog on the subject, and I'll link that as well. But really quick, if a prospect says they do not have landlord references, you can always ask them if they have a parent or someone willing to come on as a guarantor. If you do allow this, make sure the parameters are addressed in your standard operating procedures in case there's ever a legal suit brought against you. The first thing a lawyer will ask to see are your SOPs. If someone offers you to pay their rent in all cash in advance for the year, use caution. Not always, but sometimes when this happens, they're setting up to do illegal activities in the home. Once you have received that full year's rent and you find out you need to remove them, you then have to return all the rent. It's just a mess, so just ask people to pay you on time every month. So if someone throws you off with a question you're not prepared to answer, then put them off. A good landlord will never make a decision during a showing and usually will not make exceptions for anyone. If you need more time to consider the request, then say so. Alrighty then, we're almost done, so hang in there. Just one more thing to go over when you're finished with the showing, and that is to follow up with the prospect. When you're done with the tour, ask them if they're interested in applying. If so, get their email address so you can send them the application and any information you want to follow up on. In this email, you want to address any questions that they may have had that you weren't able to answer, remind them about the amenities, especially any that they mentioned that they liked, and ask if there's any questions they forgot to ask. We do add in a little blurb about ourselves and how we are a family-operated rental property business and that we take pride in our units by keeping them up to date, by providing a landscaper to keep the exterior clean and neat, by answering all maintenance requests in less than 24 hours, things like that. In the email, along with the application, maybe include a link to the listing or a photo of the building or of your whole team. Anything that's going to help them remember all the great things about the unit and entice them to apply. So, final thoughts. In the end, the way you present yourself as a landlord to potential tenants can make all the difference. So, take the proper steps to prepare the unit and yourself before every showing. Go above and beyond during the showing to show them how great the unit is and that you are as a landlord. And then promptly follow up to make it a win-win situation for everyone. That is our show for today. So we do our best to provide you with a lot of really helpful information. Would you do us a huge favor and take a moment to leave a review of this podcast? We've gotten a few 5-star ratings, and those are amazing. But what we really need other listeners to know is how our podcast has helped you and what you love about listening to us each week. Whatever it is, we would love to know that our hard work each week has been useful. We will put a link in our show notes to leave a review. While you're at it, would you also follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform? Your downloads each week allow us to grow and reach other DIY landlords. Remember, we're not in competition with each other. We all need to work together to be efficient, professionally operated rental property owners. The more landlords we can help with this, the better. Because as you systematize your investment properties, it lowers the overwhelm. In turn, this allows you more time to do the things that you love. It also makes buying more rental properties easier. And if you'd like a link to the podcast delivered to your email each week, subscribe to our free newsletter, Landlord Weekly. Each week, we take a deep dive into a rental property tip, and we include several landlord-specific articles for you to check out. And of course, we include the link to our most recent podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening to the Your Landlord Resource podcast today. This is Stacy and Kevin signing off. And until next time, you've got this, landlords.